Welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to do a quick code review overview of all of the code that we've set up in the earlier lessons. So first of all, we started out and we built out some styling, and that was in anticipation when we're building out our calculator that we can add that styling in dynamically. And next, we built some HTML, very minimal, because of course we are trying to focus on JavaScript as much as possible. So we selected, using our JavaScript objects, we selected the element that's got the class of myCalc. So this is the main calculator. This is where everything happens, where all the magic is happening. Next, we laid out the keys and the order of the keys that we want to represent on our calculator. So we had all the digits, we had all the operators, and you can also change the format here, and it will just update here dynamically, automatically within the calculator visible part. And you do always want to make sure that you do have all the keys. Some people like the C at the top or the operators at the top, so it doesn't actually matter. The order doesn't matter. You can place them however and wherever you want. Next, we have the operators. So these are the operators, and they're the same values. They're the same characters that we use in JavaScript, and that gave us the ability to evaluate them, and having a string we could evaluate using JavaScript. We set up a couple variables, and we've got one here that we didn't make use of. So we've got the myOutput. And next, we had everything happening within whenever the DOM content loaded. We ran our function, and this built out our visual calculator. So first we created the screen area, and we added a class to it. And then we looped through all of the keys arrays. So this is the one here. And we built out the visual keys for the calculator. And then lastly, we added in the event listener that made them interactive. And that event listener invokes the function of button hit. And it's the same function for all the buttons. So it doesn't matter which one you click. They're all going to get invoked button hit. And what happens in button hit? So first, we take the inner text of the element that triggered the event. So that gives us the ability to grab whatever character the user is clicking and intending on adding into our calculator. So in this case, 5, 2, 3, 6, whatever. And we're putting that into a temporary value called myValue. And then we're also selecting the output of the screen output, and we're putting it into a variable called myCalc. One of the things we want to watch out for, if by default we're starting out with a 0. So if myCal is 0, then what we want to do is rid it of that 0 value and set it to nothing, because we know that the user has pressed another key, and we don't want that 0 just sitting there and in front of the number. Because this is a string, remember it's a string, it's not a number, so it will automatically add in that 0 there. And we don't want that lingering for visual appeal for our calculator. Next, we checked to see if the user had pressed the equal sign. And if they have pressed the equal sign, then all we need to do is evaluate the formula. So in this case, when we press the equal sign, all we do is have a number value, and we don't have any calculations there. But now we've got +3, so we press the equal sign and we're adding 3 to our value. So that's what Evaluator does. And you can find out more about it on the Mozilla Developer Network. I've provided a link here to read up a little bit more about what that method does. And it really does power this calculator, because it gives us the ability to take that string value and evaluate the formula in order to return back whatever the value is supposed to be. So that was as easy as that to calculate that out. And all we did is set the myCal value to the evaluated version of this, and then lastly, we're just simply outputting it. The other thing that we're watching out for, so all the digits are fine, just enter them in, no problem, added into the string. We're looking to see if the last character is one of the operators, and if it is, then we know we got to be careful, because if it's one of the operators, then we need to take special precautions that we don't have two operators in a row. So that's all this one is doing, is we're checking to see what the last character is, and we don't need to output that last character, so get rid of that console message. And we see that we're checking to see if the last character is one of the operators, and if it is, we're simply removing out that last character. And then that gives us the space to add in the new operator. and continue with the evaluation. So basically what it's doing is, if there's an operator at the end, it's just overriding that operator and changing the operators. And if there's no operator at the end, then we're good to evaluate out our calculation. So that means that we've got a digit at the end, and if we press the operator and we get another digit and another digit and another operator, well, we can do the evaluation. And this is again done that magic way with JavaScript and the eval method. And then lastly, all we're doing here is we're updating our current string output with whatever the my value was. So in this case, if it's an operator, we're adding the operator to the end. If this case it's a digit, we're adding the digits to the end, and they're going to continue to get added in. And then all we do is output into the inner text. And the next time one of the characters is pressed, one of the keys is pressed, we run through everything once again. And lastly, we do have a clear function. So all the clear function does is reset it back to 0, and so it doesn't actually matter all of this calculation and what's being done. All we know that the C resets it back to 0. So if my val is equal to C, then the calculator just goes and shows a 0. And then lastly, we're outputting the inner text as a 0. So hope you've enjoyed this section about building out a calculator. And of course, the source code has been included. If you have any questions or need clarification on any of the content presented within the previous lessons, please feel free to connect with me. I'm always happy to help clarify any of the content as well as answer any questions you may have. Thanks again for taking this section, and I hope you've enjoyed building out the calculator.